What's up, everybody? This episode, we are reviewing the very watch that currently sits on my wrist. That's right, we were reviewing the Hamilton Khaki Field Day-Date Automatic, or as I've taken to calling it, the Desert Eagle. That's happening this episode. I got this watch a couple weeks ago. I've pretty much worn it, I'd say probably almost every day since I got it a couple weeks ago. So real quick, we're gonna go take a look at the watch, take a look at the specs, go over all the features this watch has, and then we will come back and get my thoughts and impressions. Hey guys, so here is the Hamilton Khaki Field Day-Date Automatic. This particular one is reference number H70505833. I've taken to calling it the Desert Eagle, both as a reference to the coloring on the markers as well as Hamilton's American heritage. So that's a nickname that I like quite a bit. So let's take a look at the watch. So there's lots of features of this one that we can definitely call out. First of all, let's start with the movement. This has the caliber H30 movement. Now this is not an in-house movement. It's a movement that is a modified ETA 2836-2, but modified by Hamilton specifically to get a better power reserve out of it. So normally that ETA movement has I think around a 40 to 48 hour power reserve, but with the modifications that Hamilton did to the mainspring, you can actually get about an 80-hour reserve out of this watch, which is kind of crazy for a watch that comes in at this price point. The other different with the movement too, if we flip around, we see the display back here. Of course, the rotor is a skeleton rotor. It has the Hamilton logo cut into it, which is a nice little design flair there as well. Other Hamilton flourishes we see, we have a signed crown with the H logo on the side there. Of course, very clear to see the split full day and date complication. I really like the location of this complication. This is similar to the Pilot Day-Date Automatic, the older ones, not the newer ones. The newer ones have it at the inner dial, the 3 o'clock position. I really like this split day-date because A, it lets you get the full day, which is something that you don't see on every watch that comes out. And I just think it makes the dial look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing than if we had them shoved together at the 3 o'clock. It's something that I really like about this watch. Of course, if we flip it around, you have the exhibition case back like we already talked about, so you can see that ETA movement chugging away inside. It does have 50 meters water resistance, so definitely not something that you will be going on a deep sea dive with, but it'll still take a beating and get wet. The movement is of course a hacking movement, so if we pull out the crown, you can see that the second hand stops. It does have manual wind as well. I don't know if you guys can hear that wind, but that's there. And it does have a quick day and date adjustment. Turn it clockwise to adjust the date and a counterclockwise to adjust the day. Very simple, very easy, very cool. And performance I'm seeing on this watch has actually been pretty impressive. So far, it's only gaining about 1.3 seconds per day. I've tested it 3 times. That's what it averages out to. And that's pretty good, especially for a watch in this price range with an ETA movement inside of it. ETA movements are not bad, they're very good, but you don't expect to see under 2 seconds with a watch of this caliber. And that's without any regulation or anything like that. So very, very impressed so far. So what are we looking at as far as measurements here? You have a 42 millimeter case width. Lug to lug, I couldn't find an exact measurement online, but it's about 50 millimeters from everything that I've gathered. The height of the watch, a slim 11 millimeters, helped in part by the flat sapphire crystal that goes across the top here. And then the lug width is the crowd favorite 20 millimeter lug width on this watch. You have a brushed steel finished around most of the watch, the sides and the back as well, nice brushed steel. And then on the bezel around the top, it is polished, which gives it a very nice contrasting look that I think helps the watch stand out a little bit. As I mentioned, a flat sapphire crystal in here does have anti-reflective coating on it. Of course, the numerals, if we're looking, we can see how this dial is organized. The numerals and all the markings on the watch are this faux patina color. Now, there are other ways to get this watch. They do have the black with white markings. I believe they also have a white version with black markings. The faux patina, this this custard-colored numerals, was the thing that really drew me to the watch in the first place. To me, it really stands out a little bit more than the white, but it does come with its own issues, as we'll get into later. You have some very nice syringe hands that you see on the dial there. I particularly like the fact that the hands do extend as far as they need to. So of course the hour hand only goes as far as this inner dial to clearly point at the hour that it's pointing to, but also with the 24-hour markers that are on the inside. And then of course the minute hand does go all the way around to the edge of the dial so that it can point to the minute markers very easily. You do have the 24-hour markings on the inner dial. Like I mentioned, you also have these pips that are next to the numerals. These actually light up for the loom. We'll show a loom shot here in a little bit. And of course, the primary numbers, the 12, 3, and 9 o'clock, are enlarged a little bit to stand out that much more. The 6 o'clock is not, of course, because they had to shove it in under the date window. And I'm actually glad they did that, instead of cutting it off or just not having the 6 there at all. And then the other really eye-catching thing about this watch, and I'll try to show it in here, you have this dual finished dial that's on there. So you have this very matte section on the inner dial, but if you look, the outer part has this like grooved finish to it. Almost looks like a vinyl record. That was the other thing that really caught my eye when looking at this watch. Very cool. I like I said, this watch manages to look very familiar while also looking very unique and kind of standing out on its own in terms of the design, but it does still look like a traditional field watch that you would expect to see, stuff like this. If we flip it over, of course, take a look at the lugs. Pretty much straight lugs. They do come in a little bit curved from the inside. You have this tiny little polished beveled edge here as well, between the side and bottom of the case. Another little visual flair that you might not notice very well. Of course, again, the exhibition case back that you can see with the Hamilton rotor that we pointed out before. Let me put a loom shot right here of the watch so you can check out the loom on it. It's not the greatest, as you can see, just because it's just the hands and then the markers around the outside here lit up. And then I'll also compare it to the loom of the Seiko SKX. Of course, the SKX is going to have a much more robust loom, being a dive watch. All right, let's take a quick look to see how it looks on the wrist here. Again, 42 millimeter case width. And again, because of the 11 millimeter height, it does look a little bit slimmer than you might expect a toolish sort of watch to be. Makes it work very well, of course, if you have to slip it under a cuff with a long sleeve shirt of some kind. So that's always definitely a plus. This brown leather strap is the strap that was included with the watch. It also has some Hamilton flourishes as well. You have the these split notches here for the buckle. If we look at the buckle itself, it is signed at the top there, and then the actual fastener is shaped like an H as well, for Hamilton. Very, very cool. The leather is actually wearing in quite nicely. This leather looked really light when I first got it, and I don't know if it's just, I don't know if I'm seeing it wrong or if it's actually darkened up a little bit since I've had it, but it is actually, it's looking a more darker brown, which I think I prefer. It almost looked yellow when I first got it, I guess, and I assume that it was that way to match the numerals. But yeah, it's actually been wearing in quite nicely, and I've been digging that. And of course, I have tried this watch on a variety of different straps. So far, it's worked great with NATOs, it's worked great with the prawn strap. Haven't tried it on a metal bracelet yet. I don't know how that would really look. But style-wise, it matches well with a lot of things, but not necessarily color-wise, which is something we'll get into when we get back to the desk. All right, so let us do dislikes first. The first thing, and it's funny because the coloring, like that custard color, the faux patina, was what actually really drew me to this watch in the first place. Like, I'd seen the white version didn't really do anything for me. Then I saw this version, I was like, wow, that stands out, that looks awesome. Here's the problem though, that coloring on the dial, or on the markers rather, limits the strap options slightly. I'm someone that likes to go through a variety of different watch straps, that likes to change straps often, styles, colors, stuff like that. I think it freshens up the look of the watch. With a black and white watch, you can pretty much use whatever strap combination you want, because pretty much everything goes with black and white. With the custard colored numbers, you have to be a little bit more discerning. Not every strap in my collection works well with it. So that's something that if you are like me, you like to change straps often, that's something you do have to consider, especially with this specific reference for this watch. The second thing, the loom on this watch is awful. It is terrible, terrible loom. And if this were a dress watch, I wouldn't care. Like if this were a watch that is only used with a suit, that you're not really expected to use, you know, out and about all the time, it wouldn't matter. This is a field watch though. This is something that, you know, conceivably you can wear every day, you can take it on adventures, you know, that kind of stuff. The loom is awful. It's awful. I mean, it lights up well enough on the hand so it'll at least tell you what time it is, but those pips around the outside of the dial are pathetic. Like it's said in every review of this watch that I've seen, or any other Hamilton watch that has the same loom profile, that, you know, oh, you know, you should have lit up the, you know, you should have loomed the numerals. It would have made it look better. Yeah, you should have loomed the numerals. It would have made it look a hell of a lot better when you loom this thing up. It's pathetic by that standard. It's really awful. So if you're someone that likes loom, you're not going to like what this watch has going on. The last thing that's kind of a negative for me is I think the size. So it's a 42 millimeter watch, and and while it works fine for me, I mean, here you can see it, you know, in compared to my wrist, but I have a bigger wrist than most. I would think that this watch really should have been 38 or 40 millimeters. I think that would put it in a much better position for most people. I know I would say for probably the vast majority of watch enthusiasts out there, the sweet spot as far as size goes is between that 38 and 40 millimeter size point. By comparison, the Khaki Pilot Day-Date Automatic is also a 42 millimeter watch, but for that watch, it makes sense. It's a pilot's watch. It has to be larger. It has to be more legible. For a field watch, I don't know if you need to go that big. And again, while it works fine for my wrist, it's not going to work as well for everybody else's. I think they would have done a lot better if they had just made the watch a little bit smaller. I think it would have been better served. All right, so what do I love about this watch? So when I did my video a couple weeks ago about 4 watches that I think would make a next great step up to like a $500 watch, and this was one of the ones I mentioned that I wish that, like other in the Khaki Field line, that it had like a bead blasted case design, and I thought that would serve the watch better, and I could not have been more wrong. That's why it's important to get your hands on these things. The brushed steel finish combined with the polished bezel and the polished joint between the the side of the case and the bottom is actually perfect. I love it. I think the finishing on the outside of the watch, on the case itself, is actually the most attractive part of what is a very attractive watch anyway. I could not be happier with the brushed steel. This is the absolute right choice. I was wrong in the video before with the bead blasting. I think that this particular combination is absolutely 100% correct for this watch, and I adore it. It's fantastic. The split day date, I also love. To me, as someone who has just gotten into this recently and who's done some looking, that split, the full day with the date at the 6 o'clock position is Hamilton to me. I think it gives the watch a very unique look. I think it gives it a very distinct look. When you see that specific complication, you're probably looking at a Hamilton. I really haven't seen a ton of watches. Obviously, like the Rolex, Date 8 watch has the full, day at the top of the watch. But I haven't seen a whole lot of watches that have that specific style of complication. It screams Hamilton to me, and I really like it. I think it makes the watch really stand out on its own for sure. The other thing, I love the two-tone dial, basically, where it's got the matte and then the grooved finish. Again, very, very attractive. I think it really makes the watch stand out. And what it does to this watch also is it takes a watch that's somewhat of a tool watch, that's supposed to be somewhat of a utilitarian style watch, and moves it a little bit more towards the dressier style. And also the patina coloring does this too, makes it a little bit more fashionable, a little bit more stylish. And for me, again, that's one of the things that really attracted me to this watch, is just the unique look, and that it doesn't look, utilitarian like you will see with most field watches. I really enjoy it. So what do I think overall about this watch? It is a great everyday wear watch. This is a watch, I was thinking about this last night. If you are the type to have like a 3-watch collection, this would be a terrific choice for like your everyday beater, like the watch that you wear daily. If you're one of the types that has like the everyday watch, the dress watch, and then whatever other type of watch you have. This is I could not think of many better choices. Now again, a very small part of me wishes that I'd opted for the black-white version, just because it just goes with more things. It's easier to match. It's easier to, like I said, to customize a little bit as far as outfit, as far as straps, things of that nature. I do enjoy how distinct this particular model looks. Even in my meager beginnings so far, I already have like 3 watches with black dial, white markings. So I didn't want to get just another black dial, white markings watch. I don't really want to collect nothing but those two colors essentially. So that's why I opted for the patina one. I think long term I'll be happy with it. It's just like the accessorizing portion is the only hang up for me with that. But even though, like I said, even though it's still a little more stylish, even though it's still a little bit more dressy than a traditional field watch, it's still very rugged. It still looks very rugged. The brushed steel finish certainly helps that. It definitely does feel robust. This is definitely, so far, the toughest watch in my collection, and that's even with having 2 dive watches as well that are designed to be a little bit more rugged and stand up a little bit more to abuse. This I really do feel like is the most rugged watch that I currently own right now, which speaks to its design for sure. I personally wouldn't wear it with anything fancier than business casual though. This is not the type of watch that I think you can sneak in with the suit. Obviously if you want to, you can. There's no law against that. But for me, like sport coat and collared shirt would be as dressy as I would get wearing this particular watch. Personally, that's just how I feel about that. Value for money is the last thing I want to talk about. This watch is list priced at $895. You can find them very readily for around $550. And I think that that's a solid price, because for that price, you are getting an ETA movement that has been modified. You're getting a very long power reserve, and you're getting a watch from a company with a storied history, with a lot of heritage behind the brand, but it's a solid build quality. It will last for a very long time. I do think you get value for money. It is not a watch that I would pay full retail for. I think $900 is too much for this watch, but around that $550, $600 price point, I think is the correct price. It's a perfect price point for this watch, and if you can acquire it for around there, I'd say that it is an excellent value for money for sure. So there you go. That is my review of the Hamilton Khaki Field Day-Day Automatic, aka the Desert Eagle, a watch that I've really enjoyed so far in the couple weeks that I've had it, and one that I can definitely see staying in my collection for a very, very, very long time, if I ever even part ways with it. If you guys own this watch as well, or another of the Khaki Field line, let me know in the comments below what you think about it. I'd be curious to hear. Also, if you're watching this video, if you found it entertaining, please like it. It helps me out a lot. Also helps me out if you do subscribe to the channel while you're here. That way you can see all the new videos that are coming out. And if you even want to, hit that bell next to the subscribe button. That way you will receive notifications whenever I post a new video. I thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you all the next time.